Sirens washed blue and red across my living room windows, while the HOA president pointed at me like she'd finally bagged a trophy, swearing I was violent and hiding hazards in my own house. And for a second, I thought this was just another petty suburban mess. Then my wife stepped out in her dress uniform. The young officer on the porch saw her rank stiffened, like a switch got flipped, and said one word that rewired the whole scene. Commander. My name's Sam Cedar Point, is our quiet little town, with more lawn flags than stoplights, and my wife Avery serves, while I hold down the home front, so when she deployed for 6 months, I promised to keep things boring. But boring doesn't live on Magnolia Drive. The knock came a week after she left. Lemon bars, clipboard, perfect smile. I'm Vivian, president of the Beautification and Improvement Association, just checking on our military families. And yeah, she said HOA like it was a prayer. Her question sounded kind at first, then oddly precise. Historic overlay rules, mortgage terms, relocation patterns, and the way her eyes scanned our rooms made me feel like a listing, not a neighbor. You know what I mean? A few days later, I caught her in the backyard with a laser-level snapping compliance photos, like she was auditing a museum. And right on cue came Tyler from down the street. Easy grin, praising how Vivian had guided him through the overlay maze and saved his property value the whole buddy routine. And I wanted to believe it, because deployment is heavy and lemon bars are comforting. But something in my ribs stayed tight. The official-looking packet landed 2 weeks later crest on top. Words like fenestration and setback variance. 30 days to comply or pay. Big plus a neat list of approved contractors and, surprise, a community loan with a tiny interest rate and a preliminary lien that would protect us, which is like being handed 2 parachutes and told to jump without checking the straps. I signed because fear is loud when you're alone, because I didn't want Avery coming home to fines and fights, because Vivian said banks don't understand deployment income, and that stung and soothed at once. The estimates started rolling in. Different companies, same handwriting, same punctuation ticks, same numbers down to the cent. And when I dropped a misdelivered envelope at Tyler's garage, I saw a box of glossy brochures for Hart and Langford Development, with flowcharts labeled Acquisition through Emergency Condemnation Profit Graphs from Municipal Auctions, and a section titled Deployment Cycle Opportunities that turned my stomach. Predictable absences, limited oversight, time, pressure, paperwork, fatigue. Like we were a calendar slot to be harvested. I confronted him. He tried. It's legal. And we help neighborhoods. Then, brother, trust me. And there it was. That little word sometimes pulled on like a glove right before the punch. And I walked away hearing my heartbeat count the mistakes I'd made. I started recording everything. Phone calls, driveway pep talks, doorbell, chats, saving emails, snapping photos of handwriting, tracing company addresses to mailbox stores. And one afternoon, I heard Tyler behind the garage whispering, Phase 2 complete liens, secured spouse returns. In 3 days, escalation ready, and that was the moment I stopped feeling paranoid and started feeling late. Avery came home early, not with the hugs and tears montage I'd pictured, more like a calm scan of the battlefield. She clocked the binder on the table, the loose wires near the breaker, the condemnation forms. And when I unloaded the whole mess, she looked me in the eyes and said soft but steady, "We won't be the show, we'll be the record." The plan was patience that looks like surrender. She called Vivian. Played overwhelmed, asked for relief, nodded through the inspection access talk, and pulled details out of her like thread. emergency condemnation. Who signs first? How quickly the city moves. Which contractors align with the board. All of it. Landing on our recorder like nails in a lid. 2 days later, I came home early, and the door was ajar. The dining table covered with forms titled Emergency Safety Protocol and Condemnation Proceedings. A can of expanding foam by the basement door. Mason jars of mildew and a tote labeled Evidence. The breaker panel loosened just enough to arc, and there they were in booties and gloves. Vivian cool as a surgeon. Tyler flushed like a kid caught with frosting, and when I lifted my phone, she smiled at the lens and said, "He thinks this will help him." Then dialed 911 and sold herself as the hero, protecting the neighborhood from a dangerous homeowner while standing in my kitchen with a fake hazard kit. Yeah, that happened. The cruiser rolled up. Officer Reed walked in. Like a man braced for a boring fight. Saw the foam dribbling from a crack. Saw Tyler's theatrical scrape, glanced at the official stamps, and started the script. "Sir, I need you calm, ma'am. Step outside and tell me the timeline." When Avery stepped into the foyer. Dress uniform, straight quiet boots, the kind of authority you don't announce because it announces itself, and Reed's whole posture changed as he said, "Commander Morgan calling it in." Not as neighbor drama, but as a potential federal crime scene involving targeted fraud against a military family. And the air went still. In that way, truth makes it still. We got separated statements taken, evidence, photographed foam and jars, and loose screws bagged, and Avery laid out the pattern without raising her voice. Probable cause that Ms. Hart and Mr. Brooks manufactured violations used the association to coerce a lien under false pretenses, entered without consent beyond any inspection clause, seeded hazards to trigger condemnation and municipal auction at a discount, and targeted deployments as a business model. While I handed over recordings, duplicate estimates with matching Quirks brochures, spelling out the strategy in glossy ink. The block filled with neighbors like moths to a siren. The gossip hum died when folks realized the woman Vivian tried to bulldoze was the same commander they salute in their heads on holidays. And Vivian tried a last pivot that's smiling. We're all on the same team. Tone reaching for empathy, like a door handle. She could still turn, but Avery met her with a level line. "This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a pattern." Supervisors arrived, MPs coordinated. Reed worked methodically, and Tyler started leaking truth. Storage unit with files. 4 other HOA presidents running the same play. An accountant cooking numbers, identical bids printed from templates. And the more he talked, the smaller he got. Until We Help Neighborhood sounded like a balloon losing air. They cuffed Vivian on our porch while the cicadas sang. She stared past us like the math on the wall could be negotiated. Whispered, we improved property values, as if profit forgives predation. And Avery just said, not cruel, not gloating. You targeted service families, and you did it on purpose. What followed wasn't TV quick. Interviews under fluorescent lights, subpoenas, depositions. A judge with a daughter in uniform, a local reporter who stopped covering bake sales and started asking RICO questions. And piece by piece, the network came into focus. Lyons' unwound assets seized, families compensated. HOA dissolved and rebuilt, with people who like porch swings, more than power protocols added, so help can't be weaponized. Officer Reed's handling turned into a training example, and the town walked around like a window finally got opened. Me. I had to forgive myself for handing over our deed and calling it procedural had to stop waking up at 2 a.m., replaying the moment I could have said no, had to accept that getting underestimated long enough can make you start underestimating yourself. And the way back is telling the truth out loud until you believe it again. I still see Tyler in the grocery store sometimes. He nods with shame and relief. Fighting behind his eyes, I nod back without carrying him like a stone in my shoe. Because justice is heavy enough without packing extra weight. And I still mow the lawn thinking about labels. Neighbor HOA uniform. How easy it is to make them stand in for character. How power is a tool, not a costume. How kindness only counts when it doesn't need applause. You know what I mean? So here's the part folks argue about. Was Vivian a monster or a symptom? Are HOAs inherently rotten or just ripe for grifters when nobody's watching? Did I wait too long, gathering proof while they staged hazards in the house where we sleep? Or was patience the reason a young cop's career now includes the day he chose the hard right over the easy wrong? And I get it. I do, because I'm still somewhere between anger and gratitude, between wanting to burn the playbook and wanting to teach from it so nobody falls for the same trick twice. Either way, the moment Reed said commander wasn't about rank as a trump card. It was about a standard coming back into the room about rules serving people, and not the other way around, about how calm, steady truth stands up even when someone's waving paperwork like a sword. If you've ever been targeted because someone thought you were alone, if you've watched support get turned into a crowbar, if you've had to choose between swinging fast and building a record. I want to hear it. Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if I called this too slow or just right. And if you've got a story where someone underestimated you and met your backbone instead, share it. So the rest of us remember what it sounds like. Hit. Like if you think community should mean protection, not pressure. Subscribe for more real stories, where regular people win without becoming what they're fighting. And if you're sitting on a board or committee tonight, maybe bring a binder to a neighbor, not to demand, but to ask how you can help for real.